Everyone, I will call this meeting of the special joint session of the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners, Ann Arbor City Council, and Scioto Township Board of Trustees to order. We will first have roll call. Edwin Clerk, will you call the roll for the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners?
Commissioner Beeman?
Here.
Commissioner Brayback?
Here.
Commissioner Jamnick? Commissioner Jefferson? Commissioner LeVar?
Here.
Commissioner Machewski?
Here.
Commissioner Morgan?
Here.
Commissioner Scott?
Here.
Commissioner Sheen?
Here.
Great, thank you. Clerk Beaudry, would you please call the roll for the Ann Arbor City Council?
Councilmember Hayner. Here. Councilmember Bannister. Here. Councilmember Griswold. Here. Councilmember Lum. Here. Councilmember Grant. Here. Councilmember Ackerman. Here. Mayor Taylor. Here. Councilmember Eaton. Here. Councilmember Nelson. Here. Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Rumlawi.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Clerk Flintoff, would you please call the roll for the Scioto Township Board of Trustees?
Trustee Knoll,
Here.
Clerk Flintoff here, Trustee Reed,
Here.
Supervisor Knowles,
Here.
Trustee Green,
Here.
Trustee Martin,
Yes.
Treasurer Palmer, absent. We have quorum.
Great, thank you. And we also have Mike Moran, Supervisor of Ann Arbor Charter Township, with us as well. Thank you, Mike. Great. Also, as we get started, I would like to thank all of those who have graciously helped to make this event happen, in particular the folks at Skyline High School for being so supportive in hosting the event, especially Andy Fillmore and Jolene Everhard. Additionally, I would like to thank CTN for recording this event, as well as our staff member, Andrew DeLu, and County Administration for pulling us all together. So thank you very much for that. I would also like to extend a welcome to the members of the public. Thank you for being here with us. The elected officials and their representatives, thank you all for coming together with us for another joint meeting. And the other community groups who are here with us tonight. I know we have representatives from CARD, the Coalition for Remediation of Dioxane, the Huron River Watershed Council, and the Huron Valley group of the Michigan chapter of the Sierra Club. So thank you all for being with us too. So first up, we have the opportunity for citizen participation. We had a sign-up sheet for interested citizens to sign up for public comment. I have that list here, and I will read those one at a time. But if anybody did not get a chance to sign up, please let us know too. So please speak with Andrew DeLu over there, and you can sign up with him for public comment. So citizens interested in addressing this meeting are welcome to do so. We'll be following the sign-up sheet as mentioned. Certainly talk to Andrew near the podium. We'll have you come to the podium to address us. We do ask that you limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes, as we have a timer, as we don't have a timer on stage, but we have Andrew DeLu who will be keeping time for us. We will be pretty strict about cutting folks off at the 3-minute period of time because we have a lot of work to get done tonight. So I apologize in advance, but we will be sticking pretty strictly to that 3 minutes. Andrew will show you a yellow card when you have 30 seconds remaining and a red card when the time has expired. So thank you all very much. First up, we have Dan Bicknell.
Good evening. I'm Dan Bicknell, resident of Washtenaw County and president of Global Environment Alliance. In 2016, to correct a 35-year failure by the DEQ to properly protect the public health and environment from the Gilman science pollution, the city and county took the road of intervening in the court judgment, and the Township and Sierra Club took the U.S. EPA Superfund path. Little progress has been made on the intervention route since 2016. However, since 2016, new Scioto Township residential drinking water wells have become contaminated with dioxane. Ellen Creek stormwater flowing through the city has become further contaminated with dioxane. The shallow groundwater about West Park and the Old West Side has become more contaminated with dioxane, presenting risk to homes and utility workers in a trench. Delays have consequences when dealing with a highly carcinogenic and mobile groundwater plume. We were told at the last joint meeting in June that there would be a decision on accepting a Gilman settlement offer or going forward with the U.S. EPA Superfund site designation process. Instead, in June, the decision was to delay the decision for 3 months. We're now being told the same story, that the interveners need more time to work with Gilman on the settlement. The reality of this amounts to a tactical delay in hopes of not going the U.S. EPA Superfund route to attain a real cleanup. The interveners in the court case have spent over $1 million in 3 years come December in negotiations with Gelman. The interveners have received a deficient settlement offer that, according to comments made by the Attorney General's office and DEQ representatives at past CARD meetings, likely contains an expansion of the prohibition zone, which will allow the movement of dioxin-contaminated water through new areas of the city, and a few token extraction wells will have no material impact on the plume expansion. The court intervention path can only be viewed as a fool's errand. The Gelman site was a federal Superfund site. US EPA would require, at Gelman's expense, halting the expansion of the dioxin plume, restoring the aquifer to drinking water criteria, and as a first priority, extending the miscible drinking water line to any resident who may be potentially impacted by the dioxin-contaminated groundwater. It's time to end this amateur hour escapade and let the professionals at the United States Department of Justice and the United States Environmental Protection Agency deal with this recalcitrant and litigative polluter. This is what we pay the U.S. government to do. I respectfully say this is not what we pay you guys to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Beth Collins. Actually, can you hear me? Next up, we have Beth Collins.
Hello, and thank you. My name is Beth Collins. I'm an Ann Arbor resident. I've been going to CARD meetings regularly for over 3 years, and I would like to recognize and give a shout out to those of you that also attend. In Ann Arbor City Council, Council Member Jack Eaton, Kathy Griswold, Jeff Hayner, and Ann Bannister. Ann Arbor Township Supervisor Mike Moran, Scioto Township Trustee Kathy Knoll, and Washtenaw Commissioners Shu Shank, Jason Morgan, and Jason Machashevsky. Sorry. We really appreciate that you do come to get some of the facts. Your jobs are so busy, and it's not against the people that don't come, but for those of you that have been there, you've been listening to the DEQ reports, Eagle reports, you've been listening to Washtenaw County Health Department updates, technical analysis, residents who speak freely at these meetings, and it's all, transparent, and you know what's going on. So I ask your colleagues to please listen to you this evening, and if you guys that don't regularly attend have questions, to ask these people, because they do hear it. I hope you will listen to the residents and your constituents who are in favor of an EPA evaluation, especially since 2 new homeowner wells were contaminated since the June meeting. That's just unacceptable. We know whose dioxin it is. We know that it's Gelman/Danaher's. Our wonderful water department in Ann Arbor is doing a 6-month study right now. We have consultants. We're paying a lot for these things, which I'm very pleased we are, but why is the polluter not paying? Multi-million-dollar polluter, multi-billion, and we know who they are. They knew what they were getting when they purchased Gelman. So I beg you to please, let's get this cleaned up. We've all come to so many of these meetings. We've been to town hall meetings. We've been to meeting after meeting, and we're looking to you for help. So thank you very much, and thank you for serving our city, county, and everything.
Thank you. Next up, we have Rita Mitchell.
Hi, I'm Rita Mitchell. I'm from Ann Arbor, and I want to say thank you all for showing your trust in the water by using pitchers, water in pitchers this time instead of water bottles. And I want to just say from my perspective, for the issue you're considering tonight, I'm in favor of the Superfund cleanup because water is life, and I know you've heard that many times. I'd like you to consider some questions. Why is it that Gelman has reduced the amount of their treatment flow over time? Why is it that the number of monitoring wells are distributed in a way that provides spotty and incomplete view of the course of the contamination? Why is it that this has taken as long as it has? We have some options now, and I'd like you to move forward. Polluters should pay. It's up to you and the EPA to determine the best way to get this polluter to pay and to assure drinking water quality as well as that people are safe from 1,4-dioxane vapor intrusion in their homes. We know that there are other hazards facing us, but this one is directly connected to a business with the knowledge and the money to improve our community's water status. Please determine what's best for all communities, for all these communities in the long run, including the availability of funds for future community resiliency needs as we move forward in a climate crisis. There are a lot of actions that are pressing on us. This one has treatment solutions. Let's move forward on it. I believe that engaging the EPA in the cleaning process is the way to go. I've heard that some of you are concerned about a stigma being associated with being a community involved with the Superfund cleanup. I say that lack of drinkable water is the stigma that we should be concerned about, and I worry that we may not recover from that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Vince Caruso.
Hello, my name is Vince Caruso. I'm 556 Glendale Circle, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Founding member of the CARD group and board member of CARD, founding and coordinating member for the Allens Creek Watershed Group, and former Sierra Club Huron Valley Group board member. Was involved in helping the Sierra Club with their EPA Superfund petition approval. I brought a board tonight that I've used in the past for other meetings, but this shows a 5-block area near our house where a development wanted to go in, and there was some flooding issues and water issues in the neighborhood that was potentially be exacerbated by this development. So the neighbors went ahead and did a survey of our neighborhood. And the red dots basically on this map, which is almost half the map, are wet basements. The vast majority of those wet basements are from groundwater. So this is a survey that caused the city of Ann Arbor to come in and investigate our neighborhood and opened up 3 blocked sewer lines, 2 sanitary sewer and 1 storm sewer. This is just one example of the west side of Ann Arbor's near-surface groundwater issues. We have a lot of seeps. We have a lot of basements that are undermined by groundwater. And our fear, and the CARD group has pressured the DEQ to do some near-surface groundwater tests. They finally did them. They did some very basic tests that we agreed to because that was something that could be done quickly. They found 22 part per billion at West Park. They found dioxin at near Slauson Middle School and 8th Street. So this is contamination that's near the surface. This is not an issue that's 30 years down the line, 60 years down the line. This is happening now on the west side of Ann Arbor with lots of wet basements. With the Allens Creek Watershed Group, we've had a lot of people contact us about wet basements and groundwater and what they could do about it. We would like to see permanent wells put in. That hasn't been done yet, permanent near-surface groundwater wells. They haven't agreed to do that, but that needs to be done immediately to determine where this groundwater is going and at what levels it may reach. At 8 blocks up from West Park, Vets Park was over 1,000 part per billion at one time, not too far back. So 8 or 11 blocks up, we have 1,000 part per billion. There is some evidence that 100 part per billion is probably the action level for a basement exposure. We have a member of the CARD group that has done some analysis on that. The initial DEQ value for near-surface groundwater exposure was 29 part per billion. They've now changed that to 1,900. But I think we need to work on this, and I would like the members here to tell us why they voted or how they voted tonight and why they voted tonight for a Superfund cleanup. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have Rita Lott Caruso.
Hi, yes. Thank you for being here, all of you. The political support for looking into this problem is impressive and is welcomed. But I'm here to urge you to do something, not just to continue to talk. 1,4-dioxane is a local, it's a national, and it's a worldwide concern. Just one indication of the magnitude of concern for this chemical as an environmental contaminant is that it was one of only 10 chemicals included in the relatively recent amendment to the Federal Toxic Substance Control Act in the so-called Lautenberg Act. There were only 10 chemicals in there for further evaluation. One of those was 1,4-dioxane. So in June of 2019, I helped with the card table, and we just had people come and talk, ask questions, and we encouraged. I want everybody can see what this is from far away even. We encourage people who came to the table to express their opinion as to whether this contamination should be recommended to EPA for becoming a Superfund site. Not a single person who stopped at the table gave a negative vote. And we didn't discourage negative votes. We just said, vote how you feel. But all those blue dots are yes votes. And in fact, we had a very common comment, the most common comment we got when we said, well, would you please indicate your opinion on the chart, was, why is this even a question? That was the most common thing that we heard at that table. So I'm here to ask you to do something. Don't just talk. Please support recommending this site as a EPA Superfund site. Some of you may have caught Frontline this week on the Flint water crisis. There were some pretty amazing revelations in this Frontline. And one of them is that the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services declined federal help and assistance, which could have prevented probably several deaths and severe illnesses from Legionnaire's disease. Let's not make the same mistake here. Let's not turn our back on federal assistance that can help propel us towards solutions with this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Next up, we have Bob Bailey.
My name is Bob Bailey, and I live at 424 Little Lake Drive in Scioto Township. My condo looks out on the stream, the unnamed tributary that carries the treated Gelman water toward the river. I want to make 3 points about the groundwater pollution by 1,4-dioxane resulting from waste handling by Gelman Sciences 40 to 50 years ago. Much of the frustration that many of us feel about the current situation results from the fact that the Michigan legislature has dealt the state environmental staff a very weak hand. Currently, polluted groundwater extends for miles under Washtenaw County and the city of Ann Arbor. Legislation does not require cleanup or that the polluter pay or that the best information automatically be applied to environmental problems. 2, this is a long-term project. The pollution took place over a period of about 15 years, followed by 35 years of what seems to me half-hearted and reluctant action by the company. Modeling of the situation by Wayne State scientists suggested that more than 300 years will be required for most of the 1,4-dioxane to travel from Wagner Road to the Huron River under the current plan. Monitoring and testing will need to continue for all this time, with provision of city water as needed. Even vigorous pumping and treating is likely to require decades to remove the bulk of the 1,4-dioxane because it is spread so widely right now. Lastly, any decision that you all make will be expensive. At present, the state of Michigan is spending about $250,000 per year in staff and lab time on this project. Gelman is spending $1 to $2 million per year on this project, according to what I've heard. The current situation of 1,4-dioxane in groundwater spread over 3 miles has resulted, in spite of the expenditure of over $50 million on this issue. Vigorous remediation would require a higher rate of expenditure for what will probably seem like a long time, but at least not centuries. Obviously, if some new magical technology becomes available, the situation will not be quite as bad as described. Thank you for your attention to this issue.
Thank you. Next up, Shana Milkey.
Hello, I'm Shauna Milkey, a resident of Ann Arbor. I just want to join my voice to the others who have already said, please support the Superfund designation. Please urge our governor to designate this a Superfund investigation site. Our Michigan environmental law is too weak to clean up, and what we need is a cleanup. And pursuing the Superfund designation doesn't preclude ongoing negotiations. We can do both paths, as has been said before, by our elected officials and by other people here. So please, I urge you to vote in favor of urging the governor to designate this a Superfund site. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Muskan. I'm so sorry, I will not pronounce your name correctly. Thank you. I would try, but I will not do it justice.
If you guys did your job properly, we would be more than thankful. You're just not.
Thank you. All right. My name is Mujgan Savabi Isfahani. I'm here, and I'm really very angry. I will try to speak very calmly, but I am quite angry because the history tells me that our officials have terribly failed in protecting public health, protecting our environment. You have miserably failed in your duties. And today, Gelman dioxin is larger than it has ever been. Okay, I can't talk when you go talking behind me. It has ever been, and it's still growing, and of course it's being found in people's basements and more. So basically you have terribly failed. And the reason you have never gone after Gelman forcefully enough. You have cut them slacks. In 2005, you allowed them to use an inferior method to treat dioxin. And all of what you have done amounted to protection for the polluter, while you continue to say, no, we want to make the polluter pay. So this is very concerning. What I see happening is that still what you're proposing is two things that both end up making us wait even longer. You are saying we are discussing things with Gelman, so let's wait. And we don't know what you're discussing with them. Your meetings with them is close to the public. This room tells you that nobody feels that they can trust you. You are not doing your job. You are not protecting us. And then the other option is, let us try very, very hard to get this site to be a Superfund site. And I'm amazed that scientists sitting here and encouraging that option, saying, oh yeah, let's go after that, knowing the environment in which we live now, which is the list of Superfund sites is being deleted as we speak. Trump and his EPA are not going to be giving us the privilege of being on the Superfund sites. And even if we were on the Superfund site list, it would take up to 15 years to actually start cleaning it up. Therefore, you are giving the public, which is not even here because they don't have any trust that you guys will ever do anything for them, you are giving us two options. Either let us wait so we talk to Gelman, or let us wait some more if we can put the plume on the Superfund list. Both of them are waiting. We should not wait anymore. This is abominable. This is awful. Clean it up right now. Am I done?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up
You
is Eric
clean it
Lipson.
up. Don't wait anymore.
Thank you. Next up, we have Eric Lipson.
Eric Lipson, Ann Arbor resident. First of all, thank you so much for holding this forum. We're so lucky to live in a country where we can discuss these issues in an open environment in a civil manner. I think it's become pretty clear at this point that joining the request to become a Superfund site is a no-brainer. You've heard some of the foremost experts on this topic, Dan Bicknell, of course, being probably the foremost, the man who discovered the plume, sort of our Dr. Mona. He said, accepting an insufficient settlement offer could hurt chances of working with the federal government on a Superfund cleanup. And I agree with that. I think any lawyer here would agree that you don't want to do something, you don't want to come to a settlement that's going to preclude your eventual continued, I'm sorry, it's really distracting. You don't want to do anything which is going to preclude your seeking of another remedy. You don't want a court to say, oh, I'm sorry, you've already had your day in court, that's it, or you've gotten your remedy. So Dan was completely right, I think. You have to be very careful about this. And the other thing I'd like to say, besides the fact that thank you to all these people who so eloquently made the case, Dan and Rita and Shanna and Vince and Rita and all the others, but I'd like to see some transparency in the process. It's been 3 years of secrecy and a waste of a lot of money and time, and there's been no increase in the pumping, which is the obvious no-brainer also. So people want to know, what is the offer? And what kind of counteroffer are we talking about? This is very serious and people should be involved. The secrecy does not have to exist. The court can make this a more public process. I'm sorry. You guys have been huddling for 3 years and there's been no action. So something's got to happen pretty quickly, because as you can see, people want something to happen because the Gelman plume is not standing still while we do. So I would urge you to act and to join that request to become a Superfund site. More time we don't have. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have one more public comment speaker, and it's Diana Wright.
As I spoke at the last forum, I'm not here to talk about the academics of dioxin, nor the extent of the plume, nor how fast the plume is moving. I'm here to talk about the passion that we have all failed to protect our constituents, your constituents. The city of Ann Arbor has a profound problem, as you've already heard. If you have children at Slauson Junior High School, they're probably in the playground with dioxane, tainted water, less than 10 feet below their feet as they play. It's seeping. The problem is that I'm a firm believer that if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you got. And what we're doing tonight is exactly the same thought process that started almost 40 years ago, 39 years ago with Gelman. And Gelman was spraying dioxane on the lawn even before that. We're talking about a history that's over 40 years old. And we're still trying to figure out how to fix it. Ann Arbor is not the only problem. We have people here from out county with wells. And they have a double problem because they don't have a water treatment plant. They're going to drink it. We're poisoning people. And we're debating, as I understand it, we're debating whether or not this is a good idea to have the EPA Superfund in here. I'm saying we need an EPA Superfund because I'm looking at a whole bunch of people that have failed their fiduciary responsibility. Otherwise, we would have fixed this 40 years ago. And not the same people, your predecessors and your predecessor's predecessor. To the women, especially on the panel, there's almost half of you, well, with Representative Dingle showing up by my count, we're now 50-50. Think about your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren That's not too far in the future when you think that the history of this site is already 40 years old. What are they drinking? What are they playing in? Not just Ann Arbor. It's Out County. They have the real problem. I ask you to do what's right and get off the track that you're on, whatever it is, and do something different. I'm asking that we unanimously petition the governor to declare this an EPA Superfund site.
Thank you. So we actually have another Roger Rail.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, sir, could you let us know your name?
Sure. My name is James Dumore, and my address of record is 2771 Maplewood Avenue, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48104. The third ward of the city of Ann Arbor, for now at any rate, not in any danger of being caught in the Gelman plume. Why am I here tonight? I was there at the happening when I was as a Sierra Club board member at the time, supporting petitioning the US EPA to investigate declaring a Superfund site. I want to associate my comments with just about everybody else since Mr. Bicknell this evening who spoke before you. I think we all understand that and think we seem to make clear to you that we want a transparent process. And we want a transparent process that works. And the state process is not working. Despite maybe having a more responsive governor and attorney general, perhaps, it's still a divided government in Michigan. I suppose the same is true at the federal level, and I'm curious to see, I don't quite know Scioto Township, I don't quite know the county board. I know members of council, and I'm trying to get all of your collective heads, seeing what possible objections there will be. I suppose it would be the stigma of, of Ann Arbor being a Superfund site. I think, as we've explained before, it's much better to have a city with clean water and insurance the public and its children, our children and grandchildren, to be assured of clean water, working effort to make it safe for all of us. I think that's better than any potential stigma, and I doubt that Ann Arbor is going to have any problem in terms of property sales. Is it everyone's concerns regarding the current federal administration? Yes, it's pretty problematic right now. I suspect a lot is going to happen within a year or so that's going to make a very different dynamic. But we do know the dynamic of the Gelman plume, and it has been glacial, just in terms of the movement of the plume itself. But from what I understand, an agreement that simply calls for, again, a containment is not what the public wants, and it's certainly not desirable for our community. Let's go for a cleanup. Let's get that via federal help. If we have to communities do it via ourselves, so be it. But before we resort to that, remember, Danaher is a responsible party, and it has the ability to pay. If that's another consideration, let's lay that. I would reiterate that again. Danaher has the ability to pay for this. So, folks, let's make it happen. Let's come to agreement. Let's move forward. Let's get something proactive. And thanks, folks, for considering my comments.
Thank you, James. I think we really need to stick to the sign-up sheet. So if you have not signed up with Andrew, the last one I have on the sign-up sheet is Roger Rail. Okay, well, let's go to Roger, and then please sign up with Andrew, and then thank you.
I'm Roger Rail. I live in Scioto Township, but I used to live in the city. And where I used to live in the city is now right over the plume. And I used to work in Scioto Township right over the western plume. And I had a long career working with local governments, doing management consulting and software systems for local governments, including a couple who are on stage. I got involved in '93 because I'm a problem solver. I figure I could solve this problem. After that first meeting, I was so disturbed by what I learned about how disorganized things were that I'd laid out a plan for getting the data and analyzing it and giving it to the decision maker along with possible solutions. So now, going into my 27th year working on this, I'm starting to lose faith that the right thing's going to happen. I figured if I put all the facts in front of decision makers, the right thing would happen. And we've been putting facts in front of the community and letting them decide, and you heard from a number of them today. But most of you weren't around for all those years. I was. People are worried about this being a Superfund site. It's already a Superfund site. It's just a small S Superfund site. And on a small S Superfund site, you know who's in charge? The polluter. Look how he's delayed your actions for 3 years and all the decades before that. Especially now that it's owned by Danaher, a multi-billion-dollar company. The local units and even the state do not have the resources to fight this company and make sure the right thing happens. So the longer you delay on this, the more the plume spreads, the more that company is able to cut back on monitoring and provide less information. If the EPA Superfund gets involved right off the bat, there's $50,000 for community education. That's about what I contribute as a volunteer using my former consultant billing rate. That's about $50,000 a year I provide to this community to try to educate everybody on what needs to be done. And I can't do that for another 27, 26 years. I'm term limited. I cannot live that long. So I urge you to take the action tonight instead of delaying this. That's what the company's motion is. Their game plan is to delay, 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 keep it out of the public view. All of these negotiations should have been open. I did that with Kim Davis and got a solution in place in 1995-96. And that went away, but I've been fighting to get the right solution again ever since. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Next, Nancy Schiffler. And apologies for that, Nancy. We've been going with a sign-in sheet tonight.
That's okay. I apologize for having been late. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Sierra Club Huron Valley Group. As you've already been told tonight, we were part of the group of original petitioners for Superfund status for the site. This was out of our concern for the lack of progress on the consent judgment. It's our understanding that you will be presented later tonight, I think, with some form of modifications to the consent judgment. We don't know yet what those modifications will be, making it rather difficult to provide public commentary on their adequacy. The best we can do is suggest some objectives which might help you evaluate the sufficiency of the proposed modifications. These could include active restoration of the aquifer to a protective drinking water criterion, extension of the multiple drinking water supply to municipal drinking water supply to any resident who may be potentially adversely impacted by the dioxane contaminated groundwater, halting the expansion of the dioxane plume and treating the source and outer margins of the dioxane plume with an active remedial technology, and particularly one that should go beyond the state's limited dilution dispersion remedy. Residential well sampling and dioxane analysis at homes immediately down gradient of the plume, and establishing a monitoring well network, a comprehensive one, which will identify the full extent and magnitude of the dioxane plume, including the Old West Side and West Park area of the city. And most, I think, particularly important, Gelman-Danaher should be responsible for the costs of each of these actions. And strong standards and responsibilities for monitoring and enforcement by state and local officials, or whoever else we can designate if it's EPA, should be established. We should not accept an amended consent judgment with deficient terms and conditions. The modifications do not firmly address the types of objectives I've mentioned. We should draw on the federal Superfund site instead. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will now move to response to citizen participation, if there is any. I think the one comment I will make to folks is that much of the purpose of tonight's meeting is to have a closed session to discuss the pending litigation with Gelman. And I do just want to say, I think I feel confident saying this for all of us, that we want to share as much information as we possibly can, and we're legally allowed to share publicly. We want to make sure we're following the law and following the judgment here, or the rules that we have to abide by with the lawsuit here, but we also want to share as much as we possibly can. So it would be my hope that after our closed session, we come up with whatever we can share publicly and share everything that we're legally able to. Is there anyone who would like to respond to citizen participation tonight? Supervisor Moran. I also want to note we have Congresswoman Dingell with us now. She sort of snuck in here, and we appreciate having Congresswoman Dingell here for this important discussion. Thank you, Debbie.
But I won't be in the private session.
Yes, unfortunately, again, we would really, really like to have Congresswoman Dingell involved in that discussion as well. We are not allowed to, and I am very frustrated about that. But we have to follow the rules that we are given. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Michael Moran, Ann Arbor Township Supervisor, and I too will not be in the closed session, so I wanted to comment in response to the comments of the audience members and some of my own thoughts as well. I became supervisor here about 19 years ago in Ann Arbor Township, and I've been following and working on this problem for 15 or 16 of those years. We have spent a lot of time on that, both with in our own jurisdiction and as a founding member of CARD, and since then attending these joint meetings and other meetings. In about 2013, looking at the status of the facts then, it was apparent to us that nothing really had changed over about 15 of the years that had been following this. And so we elected and we resolved in 2013 to look in the possibility of moving into another court, that being the EPA. And we talked to people about that, looked into that, and in 2016, given the facts as they existed at that time, we resolved unanimously to petition the EPA to get involved and to declare this as a Superfund site. In the time following then, as you know, the EPA did get involved, but to a limited extent. But I thought we saw some real gain in there with the assistance of the EPA. I think some very substantial gain that I actually talked about the last time we had one of these joint meetings. At the last meeting that we had here, as this joint meeting, the result was of the resolution was to wait for a while to see what could be negotiated between all the interveners' attorneys and the attorneys for the polluter here. And a deadline was set. And we've hit that deadline now. And yet I hear or sense from many that you would like to give more time. And I want you to think about that, as I'm sure you will and have. And that is that in the intervening time, the 3 years that we've, since Ann Arbor Township resolved this, and in the time since you all intervened in the lawsuit, I'm not a scientist, I'm a retired lawyer, but in the simplest terms, we can see that the pollution has spread, continued to spread. that the levels of pollution continue to increase, that the polluter continues to pump less and treat less, and continues to stall any real resolution or meaningful resolution in court. That's essentially been the change to date. So again, I ask you, what is it that you expect you're going to gain from another delay? Because as a retired lawyer, I can tell you, as I'm sure in other respects you all know, in many instances, delay is the victory. And it has been for a long time with this polluter. And so I ask you, what do you expect to gain by delaying again? Are you within a whisker of getting everything you want? Well, if you think that whisker is going to get you over there, maybe that's a reason. But I sense we're not there. I sense we're not close to there. And so I think what you do is you give up any leverage that you have for increasing where you are today. So I just urge you, if you don't have what you want now, recognize it and take another course. And join us in petitioning the EPA to declare this a Superfund site. I know it's difficult. It was difficult for us to think about moving into another course. But I fear and sense that and truly believe that if we do not, what we will do is condemn ourselves to the more of what I've seen for 16 years, which is a deteriorating situation with no real remedy in sight from this polluter. And so, again, I just ask you that you all think about what you think that you will actually gain by not making a decision with the information you have now. Thank you.
Councilmember Griswold, and then Trustee Green. Can we pass down this one? I think they have to turn it on up there.
Is this working?
Yep, there we go.
Okay. Approximately 4 months ago, I brought forward a resolution for the city of Ann Arbor to petition for an EPA Superfund site. Prior to the meeting, that resolution was changed to work with all of the other interveners, and that led to the meeting that we had approximately 90 days ago. At the time of our other meeting, I stated that I was going to bring forward a resolution for the September 16th City Council meeting, again to petition the EPA for Superfund status. And so I just want to explain what's happening at this point. We have a court date on September 20th. As a result of that, I will bring forward a resolution on October 7th as a placeholder because I don't want to lose any time. I also believe that we need to honor the process that's happening now. We've talked about moving forward as one body, about working as a team. However, my loyalty is to my constituents, not to the other interveners, and it is very important that we respond to our constituents and we listen to all the people who spoke today. Most of the comments were made by highly intelligent people who are very knowledgeable about the 1,4-dioxane and the plume, and I want to thank all of them who have taken yet another night to come out and advocate. In closing, something that I've heard many, many times, and that is not making a decision is a decision to do nothing. So we have to act in the near future. And I want to thank Jason Morgan and the county for scheduling this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Trustee Green? I think they have to turn it on up there. Oh, I think when we do that, we. Yep, there you go. Oh. Oh, did you turn it off there? I think these mics are fancier than we know how to operate here.
Okay, great. So here I am. So the comment that I have relates to or arises out of a conversation that Jason and I had before this meeting. And it refers to the tension that we feel between our obligation to be transparent and the requirements of the court action, which has imposed, the court has imposed a confidentiality agreement on us. I know how frustrating, I really do understand how frustrating it must be for all of you, because we can't, as Mike says, we can't tell you whether we are within a whisker of coming to some kind of an agreement. And it's very frustrating. I don't expect you to feel our pain, but we want you to know how frustrating it is for us, too, not to be able to fulfill our obligation as public officials to keep you apprised. We just can't do it. It's a value. Transparency is a value. I'm sure, I dare say, everyone up here holds that value, and we are always trying to improve the transparency in our communications with our constituents. But a couple of people said tonight that government has failed us in this particular instance, and we all have to take responsibility for that, and I think there is truth in that. And as a result, we all took responsibility to take another tack on this. So we got involved in the action that the Attorney General and the DEQ at that time brought against Gelman. And that is the arena that we have chosen, at least for the time being. That's the arena we have chosen to resolve the problem in, and so we have to play by whatever requirements the court imposes on us. This is not an unreasonable or an unusual requirement in litigation, even litigation involving public bodies. However, it is, as I say, our obligation to be transparent bumps right up against this, and we can't do anything about it. I want you to accept our apology if you can, and I appreciate your patience. We all appreciate your patience, but this is the way that it has to be. I wish we could discuss this more openly with you, but have all those attorneys up there looking at us all the time and making sure that we remain true to our obligations under this order. Thank you, all of you, for coming, and for many of you for the work that you have done over the years. Roger Rail, I can't believe the service that you have given to this county, and the Sierra Club, and Dan Bicknell, everybody. So many people who have spent so much time on this. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate your coming out and sharing your knowledge and your expertise and your thoughts with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Councilmember Hayner.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to say a few things about this idea that we're bound to this confidentiality, and I'm not going to risk contempt by saying what's going on, a contempt charge, and get us thrown out of this case. But I do feel your pain, and I think maybe it'll help to say the criteria that I'm going to use to examine what's going on here before us and what we're going to be talking about in that back room. And it's not giving up anything to comment on what my judgments are going to be on this thing. I'm going to look at this, and I'm going to ask what are the results of these actions we may or may not take, and is it a real solution that's going to be before us? The criteria that we use to evaluate what's happening and the actions that we can take is it's everyone's personal criteria, but I have my own. I do agree that for many, many years that our leaders have failed us in many ways around this. It's one of the reasons why I'm sitting at this table today, because I want to get in here and do something, and I feel like I've done some things to get us this far. And I wish I could do more, and I'm hoping to do more tonight. And I want people to realize that everyone has their own criteria, but we also have to realize that we speak not only for ourselves and our own constituents, but we're speaking for all of us in the county and in the townships, and indeed all the users and the owners, which are all of us, of the Great Lakes water resources. And it's the greatest natural resource in the world. We're sitting right here on top of it, and we're watching this pollution spread. And I've watched it the whole time I've lived here in Ann Arbor. That's 30, almost 40 years now. And I'm sorry it took me this long to get involved at this level. But here I am, and I'll do... Hello? Ask yourself what's going to be your legacy. I'm only going to have... I'm a 4-year term. I'm a year into my 4-year term. I might have one or two bites at this project. This might be my one chance to do something. It might be, I might have 1 or 2 chances to speak and make a positive change for the good of our community on this issue. And I'm not going to let that slip by. And so ask yourselves, what's going to be your legacy? How many chances are you going to have to make a positive change in this world? And don't let them go by. Don't let them go by like that. Thank you.
Are there other folks who'd like to speak? Oh, Councilmember Ramalali? They turn it on up in the booth there, so if you just give it a second, sometimes it takes them a second to turn it on. Unless you press that button, I think that turns it off.
Well, I'll speak.
Let's see.
I want to thank everyone in the audience for showing up. The advocates, the volunteers, the people that have been giving us the information and reminding us of our heavy fiduciary responsibility in protecting the public. I will echo what my colleague just said, Councilmember Painter, that I don't want to have any regrets either being in this position. There have been folks who perhaps have regrets. I appreciate what the Ann Arbor Township trustee had to say. A lot of us are new up here. We've only been a part of it for a year. We had to learn quick. And, if we're going to really appreciate the folks that have become these meetings, part of CARD and Sarah and stuff, we should be listening to this. Otherwise, those words ring out. And at some point, I believe, as our house is burning down, we're arguing about who's going to pay the water bill to put it out. So I wish we could share more about what we're going to go to talk about later. But I don't think we're going to be waiting as long as some people think we may in order to make a decision.
Thank you. Next, Commissioner Scott.
Okay, so you're saying I have to wait for a minute for them to turn this on?
I think so. Tap it. There you go.
Oh, hey, that's patience. I just wanted to emphasize again that, as you all very well know, this is not a problem confined to one district. It is centered in some of the places more than others, but it's not a problem confined to District 9 of the County Commission or Ward 5 of City Council or Scioto Township, that this really impacts us all as a county together. And so we have to act together. No one entity is going to solve this problem on their own. And there's nobody sitting at this table, please let me assure you, there's nobody sitting at this table up here who thinks that what's happening is right. I know without a doubt everybody sitting here thinks what's happening is wrong and that we all want to try our level best to find a solution. And I want to emphasize we find that solution together. And that is how we've gotten to the place we are tonight, and that is how we should go forward, because it is not a confined problem. This is a countywide problem, and please, as we go forward, please remember that, friends and colleagues, that we have to work on this together. And that's the main crux of what I want to tell you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other folks? Commissioner Schenk.
I just want to say thank you to everybody who came, whether you spoke or you didn't spoke, and everybody who's put in countless hours of citizen time in trying to make sure that this issue is dealt with properly. I would like to express my frustration at the process, and I want to assure you that I am going to do my level best. I am going to sum up all of my personal and professional bravery, and I haven't counted, it's not countless, but I've spent many hours trying to make sure that I understand the facts that are available to us, which I don't think are really enough, and I'm frustrated by this process. So I just wanted to let you know that I hear you, and I'll save my other comments for the closed session.
Thank you. I guess I just want to say, really echo what Commissioner Scott had mentioned around working together. I think the greatest strength that we've seen in this entire process has been shown by the results we get when we work together up here. I think we've seen some progress, and I think that is a testament to all of us coming together. I appreciate Congresswoman Dingell for being a huge part of bringing us together and for being here with us. I appreciate all of you for being willing to spend our evenings having these conversations. As Commissioner Scott mentioned, I know everyone up here is committed to trying to do the best that we can for this site. It is not simply a question in my mind at this point of one option or nothing. It is a question between two different routes, and we've spent a lot of time trying to figure out which one of those routes might result in the best outcome for our residents and for our community. I think many of us have perhaps different opinions on which route will be the most effective at this point, and that is much of the debate. But I think that our greatest strength is working together and communicating with each other and making sure that we are not divided in the information that we receive. And so I'm looking forward to the conversation that we'll have in closed session tonight so that we can hear each other out, communicate, and then find some path that we can move forward with together as best as possible. We all have different communities that we represent, different particular interests depending on where we live, but I think we all have one shared interest, and that is finding the best possible outcome for the residents of Washtenaw County and for each of our communities. So thank you all for being here. Congresswoman Dingell, would you like to say anything?
So I'm not going to. Oh. Okay. The lawyers don't want me to talk. Sorry, lawyers. I've talked to many people here, but I don't know. I feel some of the frustration that you all feel because I don't know what everybody's talking about, and it's kind of hard to give advice when you don't know all of the details. But as has been stated by Ann Arbor Township and by Mike Brand, sharing many of the things he has said, I would like to make several points, though. One, EPA did come in, and when they were here, they did help working with everybody, and I felt sort of sad when they stepped back and wouldn't have right word, but when they step back. But I do think that one of the things we've seen in the last 6 months is everybody coming together. I went to a lot of meetings that I couldn't even understand. I would do reading before I went, I'd go home and read, and I didn't understand what was being said, and there was more noise in the air, not with any offense to anybody, and not anybody getting anything done. and quite frankly, I think right now you see somebody in charge at the White House who manages by dividing people with fear and hatred. And I think that's a style of management you see people practice sometime, which is pitting people against each other, and those who have said tonight that everybody's common goal, everybody's goal is the same goal, is something that has to be remembered, and that communities should not be pitted against each other. Everybody shares that same goal. So I think that's one thing to really remember, is that everybody's got it. That's something that you've got to come out of. I think that everybody here needs to, and I really don't know, and I think people are paranoid to talk to me because everybody is watching what everybody's saying to each other, so it makes it hard and challenging someday. I actually think that someone should say to the judge and to Gelman, there needs to be a transparent process, because there are a lot of people in these communities that don't know what's going on and want to have a better sense. And if you're cutting a good deal and Gelman thinks it's a good deal, then why are you so afraid of making it public? But I probably shouldn't have said that. But I do think you need to ask that question sometime, because communities don't know, and that fear of the unknown that's worrying people. But I think that everybody here needs to have, what is it that you all need in a settlement that cleans up every community to what all of you think is an acceptable standard? So is it, is it the EPA goal of trying to, we all know that you can't ever get it perfect, but EPA's got one goal, E-goal, or the state legislature has another, and each of you have your own. You need to decide together what it is that you want. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to let everybody, but do you want that it's going to be cleaned up, not for the moment, but it's cleaned up so the plume doesn't spread as it's been doing for 40 years, and it's cleaned up so that nobody's worrying about where it's spreading or their water is going to be impacted, which is something that you've seen. You all know what the answer is, and you need to get in a room and have some nitty-gritty discussions tonight. But I do think that the public and I think it is great to see everybody working together. And I spent 4 years getting up to speed in the last few months working, and I think that's really important, and I think community members have seen a difference since everybody is working together to get an answer. So I would say come out of that meeting tonight with one plan for everybody, communicate it to the one township that's not, that you can say, talk to people about what you can say and what you can't. But bottom line, it's been 40 years. It's time to get this plume cleaned up, to stop it spreading, to people have clean drinking water, and stop worrying about it every single day. That is the one thing, it's time to get it figured out. And I can't wait to hear what you can tell me, which will probably be nothing. Thank you.
Are there any final comments before we, okay. Seeing none, let me read the, we are now done with follow-up to citizen participation. We'll move to our agenda, items for current and future discussion, and the item on the agenda is closed session. These bodies have gathered this evening to discuss strategy in the pending litigation. Should the bodies choose to enter into closed session, audience members and those who are not party to the closed session must adjourn to the auditorium. We apologize, but we only had limited rooms available. Seating and tables can be found in the common area outside the auditorium at the top of the stairs towards the rear. I would now entertain a motion from the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners to enter into closed session to discuss the pending Gelman litigation.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Clerk Pert, would you please do roll call for the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners to enter into closed session?
Commissioner Beaman?
Yes.
Commissioner Brayback?
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson? Yes. Commissioner LaBarre?
Yes.
Commissioner Maciejewski? Yes. Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Shink?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion passes. I would entertain a motion from the Ann Arbor City Council to enter into closed session to discuss the pending Gelman litigation. Moved and supported. Clerk Beaudry, would you please call the roll for the Ann Arbor City Council to enter into closed session? Great, thank you. I would entertain a motion from the Scioto Township Board of Trustees to enter into closed session to discuss the pending Gelman litigation.
We'll move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Clerk Flintoff, would you please do roll call of the Scioto Township Board of Trustees to enter into closed session?
Trustee Knowles?
Yes.
Clerk Flintoff? Yes. Trustee Reed?
Yes.
Supervisor Knowles?
Yes.
Trustee Green? Yes. Trustee Martin? Motion passes.
Thank you all. We will now enter into closed session, and thank you to everyone who has been here with us tonight. We will, we'll move the, actually, we'll probably leave the tables where they are, I think. We could move them in if we want to, but if we think we can have a conversation with this setup, we could do that.
I think we should move into more of like a circle.
Should we move them in? If,
Yeah.
we'll see how this works. If you can,
Yeah, like a box.
yeah, we can box them in.
Like, bring it in.
We'll get kind of creative here. So
I need to get bossy like a nurse.
if we just want to move the tables on the end in. Okay, oh, wait, so there's been a motion to adjourn. It's been supported. All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. All right, we're adjourned. Yay! Thank you all.